Kelsey Trainor. I am an entertainment, media, television, film attorney who dabbles in sports and sports law on the side. I write about it, I podcast about it, I spew off some stuff on the internet about it as well. And so I work for a media company, and everything the law, entertainment, sports, that's kind of my niche, and that's what I stick to. Force majeure is often referred to as something called like an act of God. So it's usually a war, a strike, a pandemic, something that is just not necessarily would be foreseen when you're going back and forth and negotiating a contract, but that can really mess up the ability of the contract to actually be performed by both sides. So it usually frees each side from liability or obligation under that clause. And again, it's something that is not necessarily foreseen, again, war, strike, pandemic, but that obviously has the effect and the impact of really messing up the ability for the contract to be performed. So you just had at the end of December 2020, you had MLS basically say they want to enforce this force majeure clause. We have to like rewind. We have to go back to earlier this year, 11 months ago. The players and Major League Soccer negotiated a new collective bargaining agreement. It gave you everything that you would want in a new CBA, larger salary, bigger budget, everything like that. Everything was set with that, except for the players didn't ratify it. It's just a formality. But again, a CBA doesn't go into effect until it's ratified by the players. It wasn't something that they thought needed to be done right away. Again, COVID hits March. Okay. So the Major League Soccer, they don't have a contract. It's not necessarily ratified. So they go back to the bargaining table. And in June, they come to an agreement. And in this agreement, there is a force majeure clause. It was a big, contentious kind of sticking point back and forth, but ultimately, it was put in there. And then you go back to December this year, where the Commissioner Don Garber comes out and says they lost $1 billion almost in revenue, and that therefore they want to invoke that force majeure clause. So it just brings us right back around to essentially where we were at this time last year, which is if they don't come to an agreement on the CBA by January 28th, it's terminated. And there's no contract between Major League Soccer and the players, which means work stoppage. And as a professional athlete, I know that that's not fun. No season, because there's no contract between the two sides to perform their obligations. There's nothing saying, here's what we as Major League Soccer will do, we'll pay, here's the benefits and everything they receive. And then there's nothing on the players' end as well. And so again, that's where we were this time last year. And so it's very hard and interesting for the players to kind of swallow this pill. This will be the third time they're negotiating a CBA within a year. And it's also really tough to swallow the timing that it's been invoked, right? Major League Soccer obviously has known that this pandemic has been happening since March. So then now why December? Have you not had any time to prepare? Have you not done anything to kind of adjust like other sports leagues have had to do? And so it's a really contentious issue, and the players are really irked. It's really hard because when you look at these professional sports leagues and players and athletes such as yourself going in and playing a sport, knowing the risks of COVID, you have people on your side. You have a players association and a long drawn out process to negotiate for health benefits, for different things while you're playing to make sure that you feel safe. So even though it's not ideal, you still go into playing knowing that you bargain for the risks that you're about to take. So, if you were to contract the disease, again, horrible. It's not good. It's not great. But at the very least, legally speaking, you went into that having had somebody representing you, somebody arguing on your behalf and advocating on your behalf. College athletes do not have that. There is nobody advocating on behalf of the college athlete, at least that has the effect of putting things in place so that, if and when they do get this heart condition as a direct result of COVID, there's anything to protect them. You see the player in Florida, right? I mean, it's very interesting how silent people are about what happened to him, whether or not it's COVID related, because, he doesn't have health insurance through the university. And it's really hard. It's a hard thing to understand how these college athletes are so unprotected health wise. And I actually don't think it's that hard to understand, but it's hard to understand how nothing is put in place to actually protect them from these things. Really depends. At the end of the day, I'm just going to say that the almighty dollar seems to always win. You had something out in LA where they were going to postpone it, but I think there's too much money at stake. And I'm saying that as somebody who thinks that they should be stopping productions. New York is continuing to produce shows. SVU, Blue Bloods, all of these shows are, still in production. And they also do have decent COVID, kind of protocols, and people are really adhering to them. But Hollywood is a multi-billion trillion dollar business, and it's also a lot of people's jobs. It's not an easy answer, but at the end of the day, I think the almighty dollar wins. As somebody who has worked on a Hollywood set and fully understands how the power structure and how intimidating that is, for him to yell and scream like that at somebody on the crew, is terrifying, and I don't think it's appropriate. I think everything that he said was correct, and I think there are absolutely, I mean, to me, if Tom Cruise comes up to me, gets real close, kind of whispers near my face, "Don't you ever do that again. You're costing people money, families, everything like that." To me, that's more intimidating and effective, right? And also not career ending and career damaging, than what he did, which at the end of the day, is traumatizing. It's really traumatizing. Again, I don't know what the people were doing, that they weren't following protocols, but they should be following them. They should be fired if they're not following them. But the actual yelling and screaming within the power structure that is a Hollywood set is just not appropriate at all. I'm Kelsey Trainor, and I'm rocking with Remotely Renee.